Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I'm your host, Tom Cochran. Life is a highway, and I want to ride it all night long. Before we get started, I popped in here and saw producer Kyle, and I asked him what he thought about the hat, which I wear occasionally in real life, but first time on the show. And he asked me, was I going to either be beating people up in the 1920s or driving a cab? And you know what? I'm wondering why not both? You could absolutely beat people up in the 1920s and drive a cab. I think that would be a good way to go. I think I just need my time machine. I can hop back, and that'll be the my new career. All right. Before I get started, I want to give a shout out to a local shop up in Victorville, California. I was up there visiting a friend and had a few minutes in between a birthday party and a lunch that we were doing. And I swung by Geekdom Toys to pick up a few comics and to look for a couple miniatures I needed for an upcoming D&D session. And I got to tell you, the folks there were super helpful. It's a good store. They had a lot of great stuff, good collection of miniatures. I had gone there a couple years back when I was first getting into DMing to get some miniatures and to help the group I was putting together pick their miniatures. And they were helpful then, and it was neat to go back. And kind of after the whole pandemic thing, I wanted also just to see how they were doing, because they were super nice back then. They're still there. They're still going. And if you are in Victorville, Apple Valley, Hesperia, the Lucerne Valley, you want to check this place out. You can find them on Facebook at Geekdom Toys or Instagram, Geekdom Toys, all one word. It's a cool little shop. It's open Wednesday through Monday, like noon to 8 or 9 p.m. every night. Tuesdays are closed, but every other day they're there. So, and they're in a little kind of an industrial like shopping center. So there's plenty of parking. I've been to some great comic shops that parking's always atrocious, and that's like a downside. There was a shop I used to go to, was on a major thoroughfare, and you had 3 spots on the street in front you could grab, and otherwise you had to park down some major side streets and hope for the best. And I love that shop, but parking's always something you have to consider. Not here at Geekdom Toys, man. They got great parking, great staff, good place to go. So again, if you're up in the high desert, check them out. All right, we're going to hit the news, and then we're going to get into talking about something on Loki. So one of the new characters that was introduced in episode 2 that, might be a little spoilery, but we'll get to that later. We don't need to run the spoiler graphic yet. We go ahead and let Kyle keep his nap going. All right, we're going to kick off with the fact that Eric Kripke, the showrunner for The Boys, has announced that they're about halfway through production on the season. I'm sorry, Kyle is ordering dinner, and I do know that, but saying he's napping is much funnier. So halfway through production on season 3 of The Boys, and while we've seen a picture of Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy in costume with his shield and stuff, and we've heard some rumors about what areas of the comics they're going to try to tackle, including the rather interesting chapter of Herogasm. But other than that, we know very little about the new season. So it's going to be interesting to see just how all of that ties together. But what we did learn is that somebody running the social media post for The Boys may be a little older than expected. This morning they posted a tweet that says, season 3 ends with Huey waking up in bed with Suzanne Plachette and telling her about this weird dream he had where a guy with a beard kept swearing at him. Now, this is, of course, a reference to one of the greatest meta jokes in television history. That was on the 1980s, 1990s series, The Newhart Show. And in it, Bob Newhart plays an innkeeper in Vermont. And the series ended with Bob getting hit in the head and then suddenly waking up in bed But when he wakes up in bed, he is on the set of his previous show, the Bob Newhart Show, which starred him as a psychiatrist. And in the show, he was married to Suzanne Plachette. So the ending of the Newhart Show, he's back on the set of the Bob Newhart Show, waking up with his wife from that show, telling her about this dream that was basically a description of the Newhart Show. Great ending, surprised everybody, and it's still referenced. It is arguably the greatest ending of a television series ever. But Newhart ended in 1990, and the Bob Newhart Show ended in 1978. Now, the comedian actor, who is probably better known now for playing Professor Proton on the Big Bang series, he starred in a third series just called Bob. And it ran from 92 to 93. It didn't catch on like the other two did. But in it, he played a comic book writer, which is pretty interesting, being that the boys come from comic books. So, overall, though, this is a pretty old school reference, unless they're hinting that Bob Newhart will be appearing in season 3 of The Boys, which would be an awesome way to tease it like this. Now, Bob is still working, even though he's going to be 92 this September. Mind you, the reference they just made today just turned 31, so you tell me. Maybe Bob Newhart on The Boys? That would be fun, wouldn't it? All right, let's move on. Fan photos from the filming of The Flash were posted online yesterday, and everybody was freaking out, not only because we got to see Michael Keaton again, and he's done up in as Bruce Wayne, not as Batman. He's in a suit, and you see he's got a hairpiece because his hair comes a little further in front than he does in real normal life. Also, we get to see the Flash, the guy playing the Flash, Ezra Miller, in a suit, along with the actress who's playing Iris. I can't think of her name right now. But we also get to see Sasha Calle in her Supergirl suit. And now this is definitely not the Kara Zor-El suit. This isn't her version from the CW show or any version of her from the comics. What this is, it's similar to Lois and Clark's daughter from the Injustice Gods Among Us video game. It's a one-piece suit that's all blue with the S logo in the center and then red shoulders coming off of it and sleeves. It's pretty cool looking, but she was done up on a harness, so it's obvious that they're going to have to basically CGI to clean it up. This wasn't like a studio photo or something that they would normally release. This was behind the scenes. Somebody was taking the photos with their camera, their phone or something. But it does give us an idea that we're getting a very different Supergirl. Again, this is Supergirl from another Earth. This isn't going to be the DC. Well, I was going to say the DCEU, but they don't use that term anymore. They're now saying the DCEM, the DC Extended Multiverse. So this is one from another universe. So, speaking of photos, the Shazam director, David F. Sandberg, showed off the new costumes for the Marvel family in a photo for the upcoming sequel, Fury of the Gods. Now, while we've seen Zachary Levi in the updated duds, this was the first chance we have to see the whole family. And all of the costumes look slicker. They're darker, and most of them I like. I think Pedro's green costume is gotten too dark. It looks almost black in the photos. I'm hoping they lighten that up a bit. But the rest of them look pretty cool. They're not quite as flat. The costumes from the first movie looked to be like material stretched over muscle suit. These look more like Henry Cavill's suit in Justice League. It's got a texture to it. There's some different shading to it. They're pretty nice looking. I think they're a really good upgrade. But the thing that may be the most interesting out of the photo is that the character of Mary Marvel, who was originally played in the first film by Michelle Borth, was replaced by Grace Fulton. Now, Grace Fulton played Mary Brumfield in the first film, but when she got her powers, she was swapped in for Borth. Well, now that the character's supposed to be 18, maybe she keeps her look instead of the adult look because she's an adult now, which might cause a problem for secret identities because they don't wear masks and you can look at her and go, oh, hey, that's the kid who lives with the other orphans. But the thing is that in 2019, I think it was, or 28, when the film first came out, Fulton was already 23. So she could have played and already been in the suit. But they called her Mary Shazam in the credits. Okay. We'll just call her Mary. Superhero Mary and regular Mary. So Fulton appears to be playing both versions now. Now, whether the film will address the changes, I hope they do, but we'll have to see. Because if they do come out and say, well, now that you're an adult, you keep your own identity, you don't need to, then it'll be interesting to see if we do these long enough and the other characters age up, will they eventually take over? And instead of seeing Zachary Levi, we see Asher Angel or the guy that plays Freddy and stuff like that eventually take over the superhero side of the roles. Could be interesting. Now, let's move on. Got another bit of news here. In a somewhat surprising and noteworthy move, Netflix is said to have paid the crew of The Witcher while they were shut down for the pandemic. Now, according to Steven Surgic, who had begun working on season 2 back in December of 2019, they were shut down in March of 2020, and he was saying Netflix paid my crew for almost the whole time. I've never seen anything like it. They were really incredibly supportive at a time when everyone was afraid and everyone was paranoid that the world was collapsing, and they stood up and they did that. Hey, kudos to frickin' Netflix. That is absolutely awesome to hear, to know that this streaming service and the putting all this money out there and doing all this stuff, they actually cared enough about the people producing these shows to take care of them through this horrible pandemic. So good on Netflix. If I wasn't already a fan of The Witcher, I would definitely sit down and watch it just, to do that, to support them now that I see that they're supporting their. And I'd like to know if it happened with any of the other shows. If any of the other shows, whether it was Netflix shows or any other company, took care of their crew during the pandemic. I'd love to know more about that, because it does seem like something the people who work in the industry would do, but it doesn't feel like something that the corporations would do. So I'm very curious to see where the line is. Let's move on to Emilia Clarke. Yes. Well, while Emilia Clarke is getting ready to make her MCU debut in The Secret Invasion, she doesn't seem quite done with her previous character. Now, I don't mean the Mother of Dragons. I think she's done with Game of Thrones. But rather, Kira from Solo, a Star Wars story. She was asked about playing the character again with all the Disney Plus series and the upcoming Lando series, stuff like that. Well, she told The Hollywood Reporter, Kira is one that has the most unfinished business. I really had pages about what her life was and what it would be after the events of Solo. But I'm afraid I've heard nothing from Disney Plus being the case. So maybe I'll just write it and send it to them. I'll be like, hey guys, I've got a few ideas. She also says that she's heard nothing from them about the Lando series. So fans who are hoping that she'll show up there, it's not looking good. But then again, we still don't know which Lando we're going to be looking at. Will it be Donald Glover? Will it be Billy D. Williams? Or will it be kind of a combination of the two? Maybe it's Billy D. Williams sitting in a bar telling stories to people, and then we flash back and see Donald Glover acting out the stories. I'd be all for that. I think it'd be great to have both actors in the series. All right, let's move on to a quick announcement that Paramount made today. The next film in the Transformers franchise will be called Rise of the Beasts. And was there a Transformers like Beast Wars or something? Like mixing things together, mixing franchises. Anyway, the seventh film will be set in 1994 for some reason and introduce us to the Maximals, the Predacons, and the Terrorcons. When are we going to get the Constructicons? Those were always my favorite because you got the dump truck and you got all the different and then they turned into the big. Those were my favorites. I don't know who the Predacons and the Terrorcons are really. The film will star Anthony Ramos from Hamilton and In the Heights and Dominic Fishback, and it should be in theaters June 24th, 2022, which is a year and 2 days. That's not far off. They better get started on that film. All right. That hits the news. And we're going to start talking about Loki, the character that was introduced at the end of episode 2. So, Kyle, if you're not getting the pizza from the door, can you roll that beautiful spoiler graphic, please? I really do love that thing. Also, maybe put the spoiler thing up there. Thank you. Look, we work so well together. It's like we've known each other for a while and do another show at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday night, just a little later, where we talk about new comics and what's going to be in shops this week and something called In Stores This Week, which we'll be doing just a few hours from now. So you might want to tune back in for Kyle and I doing that, and you can see the man behind the mask. All right, let's talk Lady Loki, or not Lady Loki. I think that's the key here. Hello, happy Loki Eve. Yes, I look forward to Tuesdays. Besides the time I get to spend with Kyle, it's always a joy to my week. But I look forward to the new Loki episodes. I absolutely love them, and I'm loving this series greatly. And we're going to talk about Loki, and we're going to talk about Sophia DiMartino's character that was introduced at the end of the show. Now, I'm more like the man in the Iron Mask. I've seen my face. Okay. Somebody needs to get Kyle an Iron Mask, please. Or maybe an Iron Man mask. That would be, just have you with the Iron Man helmet on through the whole show. Yeah, that could work. Okay. So everyone was talking about Lady Loki going into the series and how they were certain that Sophia DiMartino's character was going to be was going to be Lady Loki. And while in the comics, Lady Loki is just Loki, but reincarnated into a body that was originally meant for Sif. Once all the Asgardians were killed and they came back to life in other bodies, well, Loki jumped into Lady Sif's body. Here, she would be a Loki variant, the one that is causing all the trouble. And when the characters appeared at Roxcart during the horrific storm, all those people were rejoicing. They're having gotten it right. They may not have gotten Mephisto right, or the X-Men, or Red Skull and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but damn it, they got this one right? Yep, that's what I'm going to get to. Elevator's not worthy. She has to be Sylvie, but it's confusing because she has a cracked horn like the comics, but she has blonde hair, but she's a Loki variant, but she doesn't want to be called Loki. You've just tapped into exactly what I'm covering here today. Let's not put this one in the win column just yet. When our Loki tried to call her Loki, she refused to accept the name, saying, "Don't call me that," and instead went by Randy, the name of the employee she was possessing at the time. Also, as some eagle-eyed fans noticed, while the character is called the variant in most of the credits, in a few of the foreign language credits, she's called Sylvie. And in one of the images of her files in the closing credits, she's listed as Sylvie Laufeydotter, which is similar to how they call Loki Laufeyson, as he is the son of Laufey and not Odin's son, which is the adopted father. And on top of all that, in an interview about the second episode, director Kate Herron declined to call her Lady Loki, simply saying that it would become clearer in episode 3. And there was a British merchandising that was ad released for headsets for Loki and the female variant. Hers, of course, was the headset with the cracked horn. His is the better horns. And in it, she's referred to as Sylvie. So it's pretty much looking like she's going to be named Sylvie. Now, it didn't take long for Marvel Detective Squad to comb through the files and figure out that Sylvie is the first name of a comic character with ties to Loki. Similar abilities as the one in the variant has displayed, and a penchant for wearing green, the Enchantress. Yeah, Marvel really does need to stop leaking their toys. The reason Baby Yoda works so well, or Grogu works so well for Disney, or for Star Wars, is that they didn't even make toys for him for the first year, or prep. They didn't make toys. They didn't have them ready, so they didn't have toys for that Christmas. But they kept the secret. So, all right, now let's talk about the Enchantress. This is not the classic Enchantress, who's also named Amora, and who is a regular foe of Thor and an Asgardian. And it's not June Moon, from the Squadron, the Suicide Squad over in DC Comics, played by Cara Delevingne in the 2016 film. This is a newer character. His name is Sylvie Lushton, so that's where the name Sylvie comes from. And she first appeared in Dark Reign, Young Avengers #1, in July of 2009. So even though this is what I would call a new character, she's still 12 years old. So she's been around for over a decade, but in comic time, that still makes her a new character. She was created by Paul Cornell and Mark Brooks. And the story is she was just this average girl living in Broxton, Oklahoma, until the Asgardians decided to move to town. And making it, that's where they made New Asgard, as opposed to Tonsberg, Norway, where New Asgard is in the MCU. Shortly after their arrival, Sylvie woke up one morning with magical powers. What she didn't know was she'd been given the powers by Loki. And with her new powers, and feeling they were tied to Asgard, she chose to take the name and style of Amora the Enchantress and began speaking in a faux Asgardian manner, kind of like how Madonna speaks with a British accent now. Now, why would Loki just give these powers to this girl? As he explains in the comics, he did it because he liked the idea of creating a mortal that thinks she's an Asgardian, which means that she may not even have existed prior to her waking up with those powers. So, yes, he could have just given them to a girl, but he could also have just created her altogether from scratch. And that's something that's never been worked out in the comics. There's kind of talked both ways. JD says, I thought Madonna was Brie-ish. Being half British myself, no. You don't get to just choose to speak in an English accent or a British accent. First, you got to figure out which area you're from. And then it's complicated. You can't just decide one day to speak in a British accent. Sure, if you're Carrie Ells, you can, but not if you're Kevin Costner. There's a difference. You have to understand that. Okay. Now, Sophie gets mixed up with first thing, Sophie wants to be a good guy. That's the key here. And she was recruited into the Young Avengers, but it wasn't the Young Avengers. It was the Dark Reign Young Avengers, which were actually a group of younger villains. And she even began dating the Melter. This, of course, was a team created by Coat of Arms. And when the real team discovered the fake one, so when the real Young Avengers showed up, Sylvie used her abilities to stop them all from fighting. She got her team an audition for the real team, and turns out she was the only one to actually make it. She was teamed with Wiccan and Hulkling to prove her powers, but and she proved herself and actually was able to go toe to toe with Wiccan, but she ended up being dismissed pretty quickly from the team and returned to the fake team, who is now calling themselves the Young Masters after the Masters of Evil, which probably should have told her that these were not good guys. Though she really wanted to be a hero, like I said, she keeps ending up working with villains like Norman Osborn or Briggs Chemical. She ends up on the Doom Maidens and even part of Hood's Illuminati team. Eventually, she was tracked down by the real Enchantress, who you could probably guess was a bit angry at Sylvie for using her name, and she banished the young woman to one of the 10 realms. But Amora told her, hey, if you survive your banishment, then maybe we could be friends. But she doubted she would actually survive the banishment. All right. At that point, we're going to pause for a moment. I'm going to tell you to please hit the like and subscribe buttons wherever they are. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, you can follow us on TikTok or Instagram. And both of them, we are at _EXP1. You can join our mailing list to find out what our current schedule is and who our guests are going to be, stuff like that, by going to comicshoppingexperience.com and signing up for our mailing list. And I think that's all the normal announcements. So we're going to take a quick break, go to commercial. Take it away, Kyle. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. We're talking about the appearance of a female Loki variant, and we're going to get back right to that in just a second. I just want to take on some of the comments here. Jenny Wakeman says they need to make action figures of Moon Knight's villains. Oh, yes, I agree with that. I'm just trying to think of who the Moon Knight villains are. I mean, we know he goes up against Dracula. There's Bushmaster. There's Sun King. Who else is there? I mean, are there that many really, he's had mercenaries, he's had a few villains but none really jump out to me other than Sun King and Bushmaster. But I am absolutely all for Moon Knight villains and stuff. I want a Moon Knight hot toy. I am a huge fan of hot toys, as you can tell by the back wall there. I keep Daredevil here on my desk. I would love to have a Moon Knight hot toy. That would be awesome to go in the collection. And I'm thinking they will do that because we've gotten now hot toys coming up for the new Captain America, Sam Wilson. There's the new version of Winter Soldier. There's new Wanda in her new outfit. So we're getting a lot of the hot toys for the TV series now. So I am absolutely looking forward to a Moon Knight hot toy. And I want a Red Guardian hot toy. I got to tell you. I want to do poses of Red Guardian and Captain America fighting each other. That's just me. Okay, let's see. Jenny says there's Raoul Bushman, Black Spectre, Stained Glass, Scarlet, Crossfire, Arsenal. Okay. Crossfire is Darren Cross, right? Arsenal. Yeah. I am all for more toys of any of the figures. I grew up when I first started getting into stuff like that, they were the old Mego figures, those really bad ones, and yeah, I mean they're considered adorable now and retro, but they weren't that great. Star Wars figures were better at when the Star Wars figures started coming out. Those were the hot things, and I collected those. But man, I would have killed for the figures like this or the McFarlane toys. I mean, McFarlane does an amazing job. I mean, Bloodshot here. The idea that I could have a Bloodshot action figure is pretty amazing, and we got all these great toy companies doing these things. So absolutely, let's get more Moon Knight figures, Moon Knight villains. And I'd like to see all the versions of Moon Knight, whether it's in the suit with the mask or it's the full costume. I'm all for it. CrowdX TV says the hit the button points, and I point everywhere, and CrowdX is clicking everything. Thank you. Thank you for clicking everything. I appreciate that greatly. Oh, Jenny adds Count Nefari in Dead Zone and his sidekick Midnight, who became a villain. All right. I am obviously not as up on Moon Knight as I need to be. I have the two essentials of the first two volumes that include the original run from Werewolf by Night and the later stuff in his own series, and then also the Bill Sienkiewicz stuff with Doug Mensch, and love those. Absolutely love those. So also a big fan of the more recent run with Jason Burrows, Jason on art, the more recent stuff. Yeah, I absolutely love Moon Knight. So, but it sounds like I could need to do some digging into some of the other. I mean, I'll always pick up Moon Knight when he's got a book, when he got turned into more the Fist of Khonshu, and his moon became an Ankh, and his weapons became more ancient Egyptian themed, all of that stuff. But just not off the top of my head do I remember a lot of the villains. So thank you, Jenny. Those are great suggestions. And yeah, absolutely would love to see more toys. All right, let's get back into the variant Loki, played by Sophia DiMartino. I think we're going to need to, you want to hit that spoiler graphic one more time there, Kyle, please? Oh, Kyle may be getting the pizza. All right. Oh, Jenny has two more villains, the Seekers and Jester. Oh, Jester. I just reread the episode of Daredevil and Moon Knight going up against Jester. And I love how Moon Knight has Frenchie come in with the helicopter and pick Jester up looking like he's the actual guy. All right. We are going to roll back onto Lady Loki now. So, but thank you, Jenny. I'm all, like I said, all for more Moon Knight stuff. Okay, let's talk about Sylvie's power in the comics, the new Enchantress. Now, Sylvie has a ton of magical powers given to her by Loki. She may even rival the actual Enchantress's powers. She's fought Wiccan, the Scarlet Witch's magic-using son, to a standstill. She's also fought against both Doctor Strange and Clea at the same time. So that shows she's pretty up there on magic level. She also has no magical training, meaning everything she does is just through sheer force of will, like Wanda. Besides the ability to cast spells, she can plant mental suggestions into people's minds. She can make herself fly. She can transmutate things. At one point, she turns a guy into a bunny. She can teleport herself and other people. Not sure how long the distance is, but she can. She can create force fields. We've seen her block other people's attacks and powers with force fields pretty easily, like without even any effort. She just goes, and there's a force field. Deflection as well. Energy projection. She can, blast at people. And telekinesis. So like when Loki does bring the Roomba to him, she could do that too. Now, the most interesting one of those is probably the mental suggestion. That's something we've never seen from actually Loki, but she has the ability to plant ideas or alter other people's minds to do what she wants. The kind of stuff that was happening in the episode 2, where it was like from the movie Fallen, and she was just kind of passing her mental process through these different people, and then they would pass out when she'd leave them. So her controlling of Randy and B-15 and the Big Hoss character, that was a version of this power. And like I said, it's something that Loki hasn't really shown in the past. And we know that Loki variants can have different powers than the one we're used to. But this is something that Sylvie Lushton already had. Now, there was an interview with Tom Hiddleston on TV Line either yesterday or today talking about working with Sophia DiMartino. It was Tom Hiddleston talking about it. And when he talked about it, they asked if Tom had actually worked with Sophia to try to share traits and stuff so there'd be similarity. And he talked about her getting some hints, but overall kind of building her own character. But that's, so every once in a while you might see a trait that you go, oh, that's the same. And then other times like, oh, she's very different. So that doesn't necessarily confirm nor deny that she is an actual Loki variant. Now, what does this mean for the series? Now, if she is a Loki variant, then it just keeps rolling along as it is. But if she's not a Loki variant, and Mobius has said they're chasing a Loki variant, the odds are that Sylvie isn't the Loki variant that they're chasing, that she's more of a henchman for him, or at least there's somebody else pulling the strings. she might be working for a more powerful, older Loki, one that we've heard rumors of since the series began. Now, again, we've heard rumors of Lady Loki, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But there's been talk about an older Loki, more closely tied to the comic version, a more evil Loki, or a more malicious Loki. And there's another actor who has been, I don't want to say, he's not been exactly confirmed for the series, but he's been heavily tied to the series, just like Sophia DiMartino was, and that's Richard E. Grant. And he's supposed to be attached in some undisclosed role. He would make an amazing older version of Loki. There's just a close enough resemblance between him and Tom Hiddleston that you could see him being the older, more experienced Loki. And as many suspect that that's what he is, so it'd be interesting to see if that's how it plays out, and that he's the one that gave this Sylvie the powers or created her to be his kind of, I don't want to say henchman, but leg person. Now, that said, it would make a lot of sense for Sylvie to be working for a Loki variant, doing the legwork for whatever plans he has, because Loki's never been one to kind of get his hands dirty. So I don't see why the variant would be either. And if you were Loki, would you risk confronting the TVA over and over again, where they could just tap you with one of their time staffs or time sticks and wipe you out of existence? That seems like a huge risk. Why not create someone to do your work for you? That's right up Loki's alley. So that's my thought on that, is that they're giving her the name Sylvie. They're giving her the powers of Sylvie in the comics, the Enchantress in the comics. And they have not come out and officially said she's Lady Loki. And again, we're looking for a variant, but there's nothing that says that this is the variant we're looking for. And we still don't know what her plan is. Is she carpet bombing the sacred timeline for a reason? Or is it a distraction so they can do something else, like get into the TVA or change something different? Or are they specifically trying to create a multiverse? Because again, my theory is that the sacred timeline doesn't exactly exist. It's what the timekeepers or whoever is behind the TVA want the timeline to be, and that they're manipulating events to make it the timeline. That it's not, oh, this is the best timeline for everybody. This is the best timeline for them. And they're doing what they can, whether it's pruning variants, it's resetting the timeline back to where it needs to be to go the direction they want. They're doing whatever's necessary to create the sacred timeline. So, yeah, we're just working off a handful of clues. They're definitely pointing in the direction that this is not Lady Loki, or at least she's some kind of hybrid combination that the show is going with, that she's part of what Lady Loki was, part of Sylvie Lushton. And hopefully tonight's episode will make that clearer. That, you know, we end episode 2 with her going through a time door, and she does seem to leave it open. You know, I mean, those time doors, if you've got the controller, you can close them right after you go through. And she let that one linger until our Loki stepped through, and then she closed it. So maybe she wanted to get Loki out of Roxcart, away from the TVA and and Mobius, so she could talk to him directly. That's the thing that makes sense to me. I mean, there doesn't really seem to be, she seems angry and on a mission, which also doesn't feel like Loki. Loki is mischievous and cunning, but doesn't strike me as the vengeful type. He shakes things off pretty easily. We just watched him in the episode read about the destruction of Asgard and Ragnarok, and where we saw the emotion on his face when he started reading about it. Once he had the idea of where Sophie was hiding, that all got put aside. And when he started talking to Mobius about it and destroying Mobius's salad, Mobius said, well, I'm sorry about that. And Loki just brushed it off because at that point, he was already past it. He was already ready to move on. And, he was focused on the next thing. And that's Loki. So for the variant to be so focused just seems a little out of character for a Loki. Kyle says she seems somehow more calculating, but not in a causing chaos kind of way, but more like in a watch the world burn kind of way. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. She is on a specific mission to do this. I mean, she takes the time to collect all of those devices, puts herself at risk over and over again with the TVA to set up the ambushes and take their equipment, and then to put this whole thing together in the Roxcart store and then launch it just seems out of character for Loki. We see Loki is the I'm going to ride in and win the Tour de France kind of guy. And, not the I'm going to change the world kind of guy. And even his wanting to rule Earth and all that really was just him trying to prove himself worthy to Odin. And it wasn't really about him wanting to rule the Earth or whatever. It was, they talk about it in the first episode, it was an act. It was all posturing and, just trying to prove he had some kind of power, because he doesn't in his mind. Is, basically Loki broke bad when Thor was going to get coronated. Up until then, he wasn't doing this stuff. He was mischievous. He would turn into a snake and then wait for Thor, and Thor would play with the snake, and he'd turn back into Loki and then stab him. That was Loki being mischievous. He's a prankster. He does things that you'd expect to see on Facebook in one of those videos. He didn't see it coming. Well, not end of the world, completely change the timeline type stuff. That doesn't feel like Loki. So again, I'm leaning towards her not being an actual Loki variant, or at least is a construct of sorts, where I think we'll get an actual Loki variant, more evil Loki variant, or more malicious Loki variant behind her. So, anybody have any questions? Anybody got any thoughts that they have about Lady Loki, Sylvie? Do you guys think I'm completely wrong? Please, jump in. Let me know what you think. We've got about 7.5 minutes left in the show. So let me know what you think. Otherwise, that pretty much covers the character of Sylvie Lushton. Now, from trailers, I get the feeling that Loki is... The episode ends with him stepping through the doorway, and we see Mobius looking very disappointed in Loki, which he shouldn't be, because it's the scorpion and the frog. When the scorpion stings the frog, it's because that's what the scorpion does. Loki bailing is exactly what Loki would do. But in the trailers, there's a moment where Mobius is in Judge Renslayer's office and he says, Loki's back. Now, I think Loki's going to end up basically doing whatever he's going to do with Sophia DiMartino's character Sylvie, and then eventually he's going to find his way back to the TVA on his own. He's not going to, they're not going to have to capture him. I think he's going to find his own way back there. Whether he's going back to actually help them or to stop somebody, or if he's going back to continue his idea of trying to take on the timekeepers, that we're going to have to wait to see. But I think that Loki will find his own way back to the TVA. Kyle says there's something to the bombing that timeline in an apocalypse and setting there is a fallout we don't know about yet. Again, I don't know if the bombing of the timeline is the act she wanted to do or if it's a distraction. There's a lot of people working in the TVA. They were immediately sending everybody out. And if they send enough people out quickly enough, then they might be able to reverse all the damage done by the bombing of the timeline. But how much are they going to have to empty out the TVA, and how unprotected would they be if they did that? Is the bombing of the timeline the aggressive act, or is it a distraction? Is this the thing that they do so that the next step of their plan is actually put into place, or is this the next step? See, that's the amazing thing about this show, is that we can look at something like this and go, well, we can see it working that way, and we can see it working this way. So which one's it going to be? Oh, darn, going to have to wait for the show to find out. So we can do shows like this and talk about scenarios and synopsis and theories and all that, and tie it into what ties into the comics and how they might differ from the comics and all of that. And it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, once we've done that and episode 3 rolls, it's time to put the theories aside, enjoy the show. And then once we get that show and we can kind of process all that information, we can work on our theories from there. Hey, does the time still work the way I think it does? Or, my show from last Tuesday where I tried to explain how time travel I think works and what the timekeepers are involved. So far, nothing's dissuaded me of that theory. It's still intact. Maybe it'll be killed this week. Maybe we'll find out something completely different. Maybe we'll find out that DiMartino's character is exactly a variant of Loki. Or maybe we find out that Richard E. Grant is playing the former president that President Loki beats. Who knows? That's the neat thing, is that we can sit here and do those theories. The key is not to have another WandaVision situation where people get disappointed because their theories don't come to fruition. Oh my God, it's going to be the X-Men. Oh yeah, they brought I can't think of the actor's name. Not Aaron Taylor Johnson, Peters. They brought in the other Quicksilver, and that's the sign that we're going to get the X-Men from the Fox universe. This is the opening of the multiverse. No, it wasn't. It wasn't any of those things. It was just a bait and switch. Maybe he was a variant. Maybe he was a variant of Aaron Taylor Johnson. All right, guys. That is my thoughts for going into tonight's show. I'm super excited to sit down. I will be staying up. I'm on the West Coast, so at midnight, I will be sitting there in my room, TV on, watching the next episode, and ready to talk about it tomorrow, the next morning, but I won't talk about it on the show tomorrow. Tomorrow's show, I'll probably give you just a light, spoiler-free review. Then Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, that's when we'll do the spoiler-filled conversation and review. You guys can join me then. We can all talk about it, talk about what we saw, and open up about our theories there. But stick around tonight. We got a big lineup of great shows coming up. And of course, I will be back here in 2 hours to be with Kyle to do in-stores this week, where we talk about all the latest books shipping tomorrow into comic shops. So you'll want to stick around for that. And remember to join us on TikTok and Instagram at _EXP1, or follow us, join our mailing list at thecomicshoppingexperience.com, just comicshoppingexperience.com. So thank you all for joining me this evening or this afternoon. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for your comments, and have a great evening. See you in a couple hours. Good night.